What else would you add to things we can do to get better quality sleep or get that structure right? And you mentioned exercise before. What else can you touch on?
Well, part of it is looking at where you're sleeping. So you want a room, obviously, that's dark, quiet, good temperature. Although like, often people find it hard to sleep in the summer when their bodies are heating up. If we look at what happens with our physiology in the evening, our temperature starts to decrease, and then it reaches a low point between about 4 and 6 in the morning. If you're ever awake at 4 and 6 in the morning, that's when it's hardest to stay awake, when your fatigue is highest, your performance is lowest. You start feeling cold, even if you haven't changed where you are. And then after that, it starts to increase. Um, but we fall asleep easiest when our temperature is decreasing. So if we're too hot, then we have trouble falling asleep. We keep waking up. Um, with air conditioners, a lot of people like the older air conditioners, the old box style ones, the rattle box ones. So
Yep.
as well as cooling you down, they basically create white noise. So it can help block out some of that outside noise. With all the new ones, they tend to be quieter, but a lot of people sleep with a fan in their room because it creates that white noise, or you can get a white noise machine. Um, so one thing that's really low tech that people can do is look at their pillow and their mattress. Some people have these ratty old pillows that they've had for about 10 years. Get a new pillow. Often that can help with your sleep, and particularly if you've got problems with your neck or you're waking up with headaches. Um, looking at what you're doing around bedtime. So taking time to relax. Making sure that when you get into bed, you're ready for sleep. So you're not thinking about what you haven't done during the day or what you need to do tomorrow. What we often say to people is before you go to bed, sit somewhere and just write down all these things so you're not waking up worrying that you'll forget something. And also just having some sort of routine. Like our brain really likes routine and predictability. So even if you do something like, read for 10 minutes, get up, brush your teeth, go to the toilet, lock the door, go to bed. If you do that every time before you sleep, then the brain starts recognizing that whole sequence as part of bedtime, and it will actually start the sleep routine when you start that little routine. So by the time you get into bed as the last step, you fall asleep quicker as well, and that often helps when people are doing shift work. If they've got that same routine when they're sleeping at night and sleeping during the day, the brain starts sort of associating it with sleep, and that can sometimes help. Other things like you're talking about exercise, the more you exercise and when you're fit, you'll sleep better and then you feel like doing more exercise. It's sort of that overall health. Um, Looking at not having a really massive, meal and a lot of really heavy food that you're trying to digest before you go to sleep. Not having too much caffeine or too many smokes before you go to sleep. Both of them are stimulants. They wake you up. Um, Also, and this one seems a bit counterintuitive for a lot of people, but not doing really vigorous exercise that really heats you up about within about 2 hours of going to bed, or not having a really hot bath or shower within about 2 hours. Because, like I said, our body likes to sleep when its temperature is lower. So if you do that sort of a couple of hours before, that then helps your temperature drop. But too close to bedtime, it can sort of hurt it. Um, and alcohol is another big one. A lot of people say they have a few drinks to help them fall asleep or pass out. But what often happens is you then change your sleep pattern, so you're not getting as much of that deep sleep that you need and your recovery sleep. You're waking up a lot during the night, you're dehydrated, you're waking up to go to the toilet. So not having too much alcohol as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's anything practical around that. I did hear maybe the neuroscientists talk about the fact that try not to eat at least 2 hours before bedtime, and maybe that went for drinking alcohol as well. Maybe an hour before you plan to fall asleep, away from devices, any sort of stimulus in that regard. So pretty simple sort of structural routine on that sort of side of it, sort of help propagate, better sleep.
Oh, definitely. Because if you're doing something like, playing games and it's waking you up or it's a lot of your attention, you need to sort of relax and then, help the process of falling asleep.
Yeah, no, no. So I think there's some good sort of simple takeaways in that regard. Other than what we've sort of talked about already, what are your best tips for quantity and quality of sleep? And with that, anything that maybe some of the shift workers can take away further to, I guess, what I call the generic population.
I think having that routine and going to bed about the same time, because our brain will try and wake us up at the same time every day. So, if you get up early every day and you try and sleep in a bit more on the weekend, you often still wake up at that early time, even if you then feel like you need extra sleep and you go back after. One thing that's really cool that I find particularly helps a lot of shift workers is often when they go to sleep, they can get a good sort of 2, 3 hours of sleep, and then it starts being really broken, and they're in and out of sleep, and they feel horrible. We did some studies where we looked at how people performed after having different amounts of sleep, but we split their sleep up. So some people got 8 hours of sleep, some got 5 and 3, 4 and 4, and what we found was it was the total amount of sleep that seemed to be important for performance. So for a lot of shift workers, say if you can get that good 3 or 4 hours sleep and then it starts being really broken, get up then, do whatever you need to during the day, and go back and have another sleep or a nap later in the day before you go to work. That way you're getting the benefit of, say, 5, 6 hours sleep, even though it's in 2 sleep periods, rather than just the shorter 4 hours. And then also when you're working across the night, you haven't been awake for as long because you've had sleep closer to when you're working. So a lot of people find that helps them by having the 2 different sleeps. It doesn't all have to be at once.
Yeah, I mean that's something that occasionally I sleep pretty well, but occasionally when I wake up and I'll lie in bed and you're thinking you struggle to get back to sleep. Occasionally I'll get out of bed, I'll go get a drink of water or whatever the case is, and then go back to bed. It's almost like I've broken that state of just going round in circles, waiting to go to sleep, and I tend to fall asleep better as a result. So